This is AI Governance with Dr. Freddie Seba, a podcast and practical guide to AI oversight for boards and executive leadership.
All right, welcome to AI Governance with Freddie Seba, a practical guide to AI oversight for boards, senior executive leadership. So the goal of this is to talk with entrepreneurs, with people who are at the trenches of innovation, of AI, and to learn from them because they are the ones who are innovating, transforming their companies with the goal of managing AI governance and ethics in a growth environment. Here is all real, bold, impactful, and is in plain language. So the goal is for everybody to understand what it is. So now we have our guest for this episode, which is the CEO of Properly, which is a AI enabled workflow layer for shared asset operations, automating check-in and out, inspections, and maintenance. So asset owners maintaining availability, compliance, and consistency at scale. And you're going to hear a very distinct and unique message, which is how they use AI as an operating system. So with that, I want to welcome a good friend of mine, a classmate at Stanford many lives ago, somebody who really understands technology, innovation, transformation, who has it as an operator now with his company, but before he's been in front of as a VC, working with large corporate venture funds. So this is somebody who brings a lot of value to the ecosystem. So with that, Alex, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, Freddie.
All right. So can you tell us more about your company, Alex? And what's the issue that you see out there?
Yeah, so in really briefly, Properly is basically operations management for short-term rentals. So short-term rentals, think Airbnb. What we do is we help typically property managers or owners to effectively manage the last mile of their operations. So the turnovers, the cleaning, the maintenance, the checking for guest damage, the check-ins, the checkouts, and so on and so forth. Anything physical about hosting guests. In terms of AI, it's been transformative for us in three different ways. The first way it's been transformative is we use AI as the operating system as for the company. So it basically, to give you a little bit of history, we venture funded, we raised about 10 million over the course of the history of the company. And we got into deep trouble during the pandemic. In a month, about 40% of our customers fell over and died, as in didn't make it through the pandemic. So that should have been the end of the company. But through cost cuts and perseverance, we managed to pull through. What it means is that we had to drastically reduce the size of the team and particularly the size of the management team. So I tried to make lemonade from lemons, and I've now, over the last 1.5 years, started to institute essentially an entire management layer that's AI. So our teams that are now smaller and more junior each work inside AI projects that manage them on a week-by-week basis, that set their milestones, set their deliverables, check on their deliverables, act as coaches, monitor them, manage them, and then report in summary form back to me. So that's why I say it's the operating system for the company. Second thing that in how it's been transformative for us, it's enabled me as the founder to play a very different role. I have an engineering team, of course, and that's very central to the life of the company. But in the past, when I came up with a product idea, I went through a vetting of the product, then spec'd it out, then sent it to the engineers. They would ask questions, then came through a second or third version of the spec. Then it went into development. Then I sort of saw a draft version sort of pre-release. Then it went through QA and so on and so forth. And typically it would take months before an idea would sort of turn into a real feature. So to cut to the chase, I do most of the AI related development, which is now completely central to the company myself now. I'm not going to claim that I can code, but I taught myself enough, again, either using AI to teach myself coding or using AI for what's sort of now called vibe coding. But it works well enough so I can write very, very sophisticated, or I shouldn't say sophisticated, I should say complex prototypes that are very, very close to real life deployments. And those prototypes help me to turn an idea into something that works sometimes in hours, more often in weeks. So it's drastically shortened the time to market. And then we can use those prototypes internally for operations for a while before we then decide if everything's working to actually turn it into production. And so it's drastically shortened, not just drastically shortened time to market, but what it really did is it allows me to experiment like crazy. Because before, sort of each product decision is a huge decision that often would require tens of thousands of dollars of engineering time. Now it could be an afternoon of me playing around and trying something and see whether it works. So I can experiment a lot more, and you see the fruits of that. I also understand the problems, the implementation problems much more. The third way how we use AI is in that it obviously fundamentally transforms the product that we offer. As I mentioned at the beginning, our product is an operations management platform. So that means we have to, in order to build good standard operating procedures and processes for short-term rental management, first we need to know exactly what's happening at the short-term rental, as in what assets are there, how many light bulbs, what filters, what batteries, how many steps to the front door, how many windows, what appliances, what issues with the appliances. The reality is no one ever has the time to do this properly. So hence the name of the company. If you don't do the onboarding right, you'll pay for it through the life of the contract as the property manager or as the operator, because you always manage things yourself because you've got it in your head and no one else knows it. So that means only you can manage the property. What we did is we fundamentally re-engineered the onboarding process. We now allow owners or managers to take 1 to 2 minute videos of each room. We call that video walkthrough. The video is so simple that anybody, even the cleaner, can take it with a mobile phone. And when I say even the cleaner, I mean even someone who doesn't have detailed knowledge of the property can easily take those walkthrough videos. And then we turn them into extremely sophisticated, structured information about the property, like where everything is, what it is, how it works, how much it cost, when it was purchased, what the typical failure issues are, what tasks are associated with it, when it needs to be replaced, when it needs to be restocked. We look for safety issues, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, railing height, sort of all of the things that you need to know to properly operate a property. Then we built a series of agents that allow you to go for secondary information, regulatory information about what's allowed at that location, safety requirements, and vendors, who services an LG fridge in Emeryville, what's the appliance repair organization, who provides 24/7 service. So basically all of the sort of secondary information that you need to operate that property, and we can automate that entire process beginning to end just from those short videos. So we end up with a detailed catalog of inventory. What I'm trying to say with this, without going too much into the details, is it fundamentally transforms what the software that comes after the onboarding can actually do for you. Because only if and when you have all of that information can you actually then properly operate the property. So it kind of enables our core business in a completely transformative way. Lastly, big part of what we're doing is verifications of what we call real-time inspections, where our teams around the world look at photos that the cleaner sends back from, after cleaning a property, where we find if everything was done correctly, where we have a compliance record, where we can fix any errors as they happen. That too, we used to do all of this completely manually. So it was actual people all around the world that sit 24/7 in the front of the screen and look at the photos and then comment on them. Now all of that is AI enabled. We very, very much focus, we still have a person there, so there's a human in the loop, but the actual detection and analysis is all AI run. So that means it drastically reduces our cost, allows the same agent to do many, many more properties at the same time. And it drastically changes the speed by which we can give feedback, which is critical because the cleaner's not going to wait around to get feedback. So it really fundamentally changes the utility, the usefulness of our software solutions. So in short, it's completely transformed everything we do. And allows us with a much smaller team to do much, much more than we were doing with a much larger team before.
Excellent, Alex. There's so much here. I have so many questions. So first, congratulations on the evolution of your company and the way that you have, survived and not only survived, but having this reckoning helped you look around, look for the technologies at hand and trying to implement it in a way that, not to replace your workers, but to enhance them, to have this human in the loop. And you have chosen a pretty difficult challenge, which is you're working with it seems like a distributed workforce. Some of them, or most of them, contractors who might go for the first time. And I'm thinking while you're talking about that and say, well, the hospitals have all these issues, right? With people going in and out on the operating rooms and people getting discharged and patients and visits and medication. So I see how your platform is critical not only for healthcare but also for education, where you have massive institutions who focus should be on teaching and bringing students and helping a faculty. But now you're kind of saying, look, we can use AI as a operating system, borrowing on your message, to basically run these very complex um, processes, which might not be the core of those institutions. So I can see how what you're trying to do could set an example for organizations across different industry to basically move things to AI, which makes sense, and keep humans where you really need it based on the industry, based on the issue. So thank you for that. So how can somebody who sits at a board, which you have been a board yourself in the past, and you have worked at pretty large organizations, so you have the beauty of looking at a problem from different angles. Plus, in your current application, you are also a user, because that's part of what, I mean, very well of all the pinpoints that your company is trying to solve. So how would you advise boards on, because you're an operator, how do you advise them to think about this massive transformation? You have gone all the way, and coming from somebody, as you mentioned, very humble, that you're not a technical person, you're not a computer scientist, you're a business person who's looking at this and saying, look, AI has escaped the lab, if you will. It's not only for data scientists and computer scientists. So how would you advise them to think about this?
A couple of things. I mean, let me divide it into opportunity and risk. Let me start from the fun part. That's